Member for West Vancouver Capilano.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This motion is about women's health. So why am I going to spend my entire time right now talking about childcare, or to be more specific, the lack of childcare, or the childcare desert in British Columbia created under this NDP government? I'm deeply concerned about the state of women's health, particularly the stress they endure due to adequate childcare provisions. BC is far behind on its promise to create childcare spaces, let alone $10 per day. And what is worse is that this NDP government is not only not creating additional spaces, we are losing childcare spaces in British Columbia, with the biggest casualty being infant to toddler spaces. So we can listen to the sound clips from the NDP government over and over. The reality is there are 10,000 less children in childcare this year since the NDP have formed government. The NDP's inability to deliver on their signature election promise of $10 a day is evident. Less than 10% of the promised childcare spaces are offered at that pledged $10 a day rate. So of those lucky enough to even find childcare, 9 out of 10 of those families are unfairly deprived of the affordable childcare they were assured in successive elections. This is another example, Mr. Speaker, of this government spending more and doing less. Studies have shown that gender roles and expectations place additional burdens on women in accessing health care due to a lack of appropriate, available, and affordable childcare. A 2022 Kaiser survey found that 24% of women could not find time to go to the doctor, 23% could not take time off work, and 14% of women missed or delayed their own health care because of a lack of childcare. It places immense stress on women. Juggling work and childcare without adequate support can lead to heightened levels of stress and anxiety, disrupted sleep patterns, irregular exercise routines, and compromised nutrition. These factors contribute to physical health challenges, including chronic conditions. So lack of affordable childcare options force women to make career sacrifices, such as reducing working hours or leaving the workforce altogether. And contrary to the NDP's false claim that accessible childcare has contributed to more than 100,000 women joining the workforce since 2017, the reality paints a starkly different picture. Under this NDP's tenure, the labor force participation rate for women has dropped by 1.5%, and the employment rate has fallen by 2% for women in British Columbia. Now, these are not mere fluctuations. They signify a decline in women's share of the workforce amidst a childcare crisis. Here's a quote from a February CBC story. Quote, "Each month, Natasha Hartston pulls out her spreadsheet of licensed childcare facilities in Kamloops, BC, where she and her family live, and starts calling around to see if she can get her daughter into one of them," unquote. Can you imagine how stressful that is? And there are many more women like Natasha out there. Last fall, along with the MLA for Skeena, I met with a group of parents in Terrace to talk about the childcare desert they are facing in more rural communities. A doctor and a paramedic, both moms, told us they had reduced shifts due to the inability to get childcare. Most childcare providers are women. It's still the fact, so I don't want to forget the impact that this has on childcare providers and the women that work in childcare centers. This provincial government is unable to get the money out the door that is provided to them, hundreds of millions of dollars from the federal government, yet they are unable to get proper funding out to these childcare providers, causing stress, anxiety, women losing sleep because they don't know if government is actually going to come through and pay the fees that they're committed to pay. So government is sitting on money they can't seem to spend. We owe it to women and families to acknowledge the failures of the current childcare system and demand meaningful action from this NDP government. 7 years after this NDP government promise, it continues to fail women in British Columbia and has fallen behind all other provinces in meeting its childcare commitments, particularly now the wage grid. So it is a fact that the lack of appropriate and affordable childcare has negative impacts on women's health, and this government better do better. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.